We're back into the Breakfast Club on 938 now, speaking with Andrew Chan, the founder and the CEO of ACI HR Solutions. We're talking about the challenges faced by the hospitality, lifestyle, and travel industry. Andrew, welcome back into the program. We talked about hospitality in our last segment. Let's talk about the travel industry. We talked about automated kiosks at the airport. Is that the be-all and end-all of the travel industry?
No, it's not. I think there's certainly a lot more in its evolution, and we're seeing that probably on the front end. I think we've seen a lot of disruption, particularly in the travel sector, when it comes to online. I think there are a lot of online booking tools. Indeed. I think there is a lot of different solution when it comes to travel, because I think travelers nowadays, particularly the younger travelers, are discerning, and they're looking for I guess off the beaten track and very different ways of traveling. And I think from what we've seen a lot of new technology, apps, solutions, websites that's catering to that thirst.
And we recently interviewed somebody who had a wild card solution to travel. You find out where you're going only about a couple of days before. All you know is the time that you're supposed to be at the airport and your destination and the climate at your destination. I don't know if I could go down that route, but will there always be a luxury segment of travel? Say, I want to know where I'm going, when I'm going, and where I'm staying.
Well, as long as you do that, Keith, then I think there is.
Indeed, because I don't like this uncertainty of not being able to arrive at my destination, or arriving at a destination where a volcano is erupting.
Well, I've got to say, it's certainly not for everybody, and I'm a bit of a planner myself. Mm-hmm. I think the luxury segment, there will always be a market for that, at least for the medium term anyway. But I think, in the travel sector, I think the low-cost carriers have played a very important role in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly here in Asia, in making travel easier and more seamless, and opening up new markets, right across the region.
We talked about travel, people, old fuddy-duddies like myself, like the planned route. Even if I'm doing it the free and easy way, I want to get there, well, when I'm supposed to, and stay where I want to, and not leave that to the whims and fancies of an app. But in the travel agency, it must be in the travel segment, it must be said, there is disruption these days. You talked about booking online for the best travel, for the best price in air travel, and perhaps where you want to stay. But you've seen the decline of the travel agency, unless you're going on a tour, perhaps an organized tour. Are people's travel destinations changing? You talked about the advent of the budget carrier. Is this driven by the younger people again, the millennials?
To an extent, I think the low-cost carriers do appeal, but I've got to say, even for myself, sometimes I will, I will make my own booking and jump on a low-cost carrier, because sometimes it is quite easy to do that. I do think people's travel habits have changed somewhat, and I think that is because of the ease of getting to certain places. I think traditional cities, traditional hubs will always appeal, but I think people are getting far more savvy with their travel habits, or their holiday habits. So I think they're always looking for something new, new destination, new places to go.
We talked about the issue of manpower in the hospitality segment. Is it similar in the travel industry?
Yeah, it is. From what I've seen, one of the more challenging positions to find and recruit for are travel consultants, particularly here in Singapore. Mm-hmm. Traditionally the travel consultants is quite a unique skill set, and it takes experience to be a travel consultant, and I'm certainly finding in the marketplace that there is less people entering the travel industry, particularly at a travel consultant level.
Again, I'm alluding to a time when in a place where your accent is rife, you'd see Thomas Cook. You don't see Thomas Cook anymore.
No, and you don't. Look, Keith, my first job was as a travel consultant. I started working in a travel agency as a 17-year-old male boy, and I sort of stayed there for a couple of years and progressed onto airlines. So I love the travel industry. Very, very passionate about travel industry and have seen its evolution over the years. I think like other industries, if organizations, if businesses don't evolve, you get left behind.
So where is the travel industry evolving to? What's the next incarnation of travel? Is it do it yourself and that is the be-all and end-all? Is the travel consultant going the way of the dodo?
Look, I don't think it's going to be fully do-it-yourself. I think the doing it yourself only works if it's generally if it's a point-to-point and it's an easy holiday to plan. So I think the travel consultants, particularly for corporates, is still going to be necessary. I've got a lot of corporate travel clients, so I need to make sure that they're still going to be around. So I still think it is going to be necessary, but it certainly is a hybrid of the two, which is online, adopting technology, and the human aspect of travel consultants.
Let's talk about the human aspect. Since we're always talking about artificial intelligence, technology, which is disrupting the industry, where would the human interaction come in? Because in the end, I'd like to speak to somebody after the fact if I get stranded somewhere.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's not even just after the fact. I mean, if you're planning a honeymoon, if you're planning a sophisticated holiday, I know, as I mentioned, I started off as a travel consultant. I would want the advice and the expertise of someone that's been to that market, any local tips and advice that they could give me. So I would still want that human aspect to advise me. And then you're right. And then the second part is, nowadays, whether it's banking, insurance companies, you do want to speak to a human person rather than pressing different numbers, particularly
or speaking with a chatbot.
Absolutely. I mean, if a volcano erupts, I don't want to hold on the line. I want to speak to somebody.
I don't want to be at the core or the center of it. And when we do talk about something, you talked about honeymoons. You don't want to have perhaps World War III erupting. Talk about eruption during a honeymoon, and it's not the best of ways to start things off. But then again, these days, we've got travel wedding planners who put all of this into work for you as well. So is this another industry that is being perhaps sidelined?
Yeah, I guess to an extent. But, again, I don't think completely elimination of the human aspect will completely happen because, like you said, if disasters happen, if emergencies happen, you would still want. I think human nature would be that you still want to talk to a person and get some sort of resolution.
And which brings us to the final question: when I want to speak to that person, are we qualified enough here in Singapore?
Very good question, Keith. I think there's probably, it depends who you go to. I think there is certainly a lot of very, very qualified, very good people out there.
So you still get what you pay for?
Absolutely. You do, to a certain extent you do. But I do think that organizations can probably do a little bit more on the training and development aspect. I still think that not enough focus is on training and development. I think there are still employees out there that are a little bit shy of doing that, and I think training is one great form of engagement, which ultimately leads back to what we were talking about, which is retaining staff.
Andrew Chan, it's been a fascinating conversation. So you come back and talk to us again when the next wave of disruption hits us, and that's probably going to be tomorrow. Andrew Chan is the CEO and founder of ACI HR Solutions, and you've been listening to The Breakfast Club on 938 Now, keeping you in the know and on the go.
LTA Traffic Update.